Hey there, my name's Curtis Lucas and you're watching Empire Building. So you think you can stake? How many of you have been waiting years for Ethereum to reach the stage where billions of dollars worth of ETH were going to be locked up in smart contracts for years, gutting the supply of Ethereum on the open market? Maybe you've acquired the minimum amount of ETH yourself so that you can put that money to work for you while you sleep, just like you were told you could do. Well, what's everybody waiting for? 14 days since the deposit contract went live, and only 1/5 of the minimum amount required to launch the beacon chain has been locked up in the deposit contract. Today I'm going to be talking about what is going on here. Why are there so few validators? Will Ethereum 2.0 launch on December 1st? What exactly is involved with setting up a validator and running an ETH 2.0 node? What are the risks of being an early adopter? And what is the deal with staking pools? Will staking pools offer a viable alternative to running your own node? I'm going to be showing you more about the launch of Ethereum 2.0 than anywhere else because I've actually gone through the process myself of setting up a testnet validator on the Pyrmont Testnet, as well as sending 32 of my own Ethereum into the actual deposit contract. So I will be ready for the official launch when it does occur. I'm going to share with you what I learned from this process so that if you're looking to join as well, then you'll know what to expect. And we may even be able to make some predictions on the price of Ethereum in the coming weeks and months as Ethereum makes this groundbreaking transition into the future of blockchain technology. This video will not be a tutorial, although I will be doing that soon. You should know that the Pyrmont Testnet is going to be unsupported this week, so I decided that it would be of little help to most of you if I did the tutorial on that. So stay tuned for the next tutorial when Prism releases its new testnet called Pyrmont later this week. And this is what I mean by sharing with you information that you're not hearing anywhere else. And stay tuned for the entire video because there's plenty more to come. This will save you a lot of time and frustration while trying to navigate the events that are going to unfold over the coming weeks and months. So for the sake of the algorithm, hit the like button and support the channel. And if you haven't already done so, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. If the beacon chain is going to launch on December 1st, then roughly 414,000 ETH needs to be deposited into the deposit contract within the next week, since the minimum threshold needs to be met 7 days prior to the launch of the beacon chain. Now, not to worry, this isn't some kind of hard deadline. If it's not met, then it'll just launch 7 days after whenever that threshold is met. This means that if we happen to meet that minimum deposit threshold by December 1st, then the beacon chain will launch on December 7th. This seems to be a common misunderstanding that's floating around out there. So what exactly is going on here? Why are so few people choosing to line up to be part of this historic moment? For starters, it's kind of hard if you don't have the technical skills. This isn't like opening a bank account, signing a few forms, and depositing your money and then walking away. Setting up a validator is a complicated process that takes days, if not weeks, to get through, depending on how many other validators are trying to get in at the same time. If you're asking yourself how hard could it be, consider this. How many of your favorite YouTubers have actually disclosed that they have deposited 32 ETH in and are ready to become a validator on day one when the beacon chain launches? They are all talking about it, but none of them have actually done it. Shout out to Chico Crypto, who's the only one so far that I've seen that has actually demonstrated he has the skills to set one up, but he has yet to disclose whether or not he has actually deposited his 32 ETH and be ready to run a node when that launch day comes. Now, I'm not suggesting that these other YouTubers don't have the technical skills. There are plenty of other reasons why someone might choose not to participate as an early adopter in this transition phase. There could be complications with the launch, which could lead to penalties or even slashings in extreme scenarios. They may be thinking, let's just wait for this system to run for a little while and then I'll jump in. Here's another tidbit of information that they may not realize. On Twitter, Vitalik Buterin said this: reminder, penalties for the early months of ETH2 have been reduced to 1/3 to 1/4 of the Medalla levels. And if 524,288 ETH participate, rewards are approximately 25% APR. So in fact, even if you somehow get slashed 3 weeks after you join, staking would still probably be net profitable. So being an early adopter may not be as risky as everyone thinks it is. Either way, we are off to a slow start. But it is encouraging that over the last few days, the flow of Ethereum into the deposit contract has seen a notable increase. Unless this increases substantially soon, there is little likelihood that the beacon chain will be ready to launch on December 1st. For those of you traders out there, this could mean that Ethereum will suffer a pullback in the price due to what will be perceived as yet another delay in the rollout of Ethereum 2. It's not. This will be your last opportunity to pick up cheap Ethereum before the price takes off and doesn't look back. Rest assured, we will reach the threshold and phase 0 will begin. So what's so hard about setting up a validator anyways? Well, it requires users to have knowledge of how to use a command line interface. These days, people have been spoiled with graphical user interfaces like Windows, point and click. That just doesn't work inside Ethereum, at least not yet. When I went through the process, I used a Linux terminal to complete the setup of my testnet validator. I chose to take this seriously, so I invested in an NUC mini computer that I could dedicate to running validators long term. I had never used Linux before, so that was my first learning curve. Once I got through that, I had to research every step that followed. I highly recommend that anyone who wants to run their own node first do so on the testnet using fake ETH so that you can learn without risking your hard-earned Ethereum. I will leave a link in the description for the onboarding site that will walk you through the process. Now, if you're like me, reading through this website will not be enough. A tutorial is what you really need. So, as I mentioned before, I will be releasing a tutorial once the new Pyrmont Testnet launches later this week. But here's the general process. You're going to need to select an ETH1 client and install it. Then an ETH2 client and install it. Then you're going to need to choose if you're going to set up and run your own ETH1 node or choose to use a third-party node that your client will point to. Again, fair warning, it can take upwards of 8 to 12 hours to download the data to run a private node on the Ethereum blockchain, and it will occupy a large amount of data on your hard drive. This was a mistake that I made, and it completely filled my hard drive and crashed my node. You also need to be running this on a solid-state hard drive to keep up with the speed requirement. If you're going to use a third-party node, then you need to learn how to set up a project using that service in order to provide you an endpoint that you can insert into the command line of your terminal so that you can launch and sync up your beacon node. If I have completely lost you by now, then you can see how this introduces a pretty large barrier to entry for the average person. And the process does not end there. It only increases in its complexity. Not to mention, there are multiple steps that can take days to get through, depending on when you choose to join. Downloading the beacon chain can take over 10 hours to complete. And then once you have created your keys and sent your deposit, it can take days or even weeks for your validator to become eligible for activation. 9 days ago, I completed the deposit for a validator on the Medalla testnet, and I still have to wait at least another week for that validator to be picked up by the beacon chain. By that time, the Medalla testnet will be unsupported, which is why I said there is little point in going through the process at this time. Right now, there are over 17,000 validators in the queue waiting to enter the testnet, and most will never get in. For perspective, that is more than the total minimum amount that we need to launch Ethereum 2.0. If this happens at any time after the beacon chain launches, like say when staking pools finally get up and running, there are going to be a lot of people waiting a very long time to get activated, and they won't understand why. The reason is after the system launches, only 32 validators can be activated per epoch, which occurs every 7 or 8 minutes. This is why I wanted to get in on day one. Those who are first will have a much easier time getting picked up by the beacon chain. On the testnet, the system shut down because so many validators stopped attesting, meaning participation got low. This happened because there were a couple upgrades to the protocol and those validators were not maintained. So the system no longer reached finality. This led to the system to shut down, and when those validators didn't come back online, the system entered slashing mode, which began slashing the balance of all of these validators until their balance reached below 16 Ethereum and they were ejected from the system. This process took nearly a month to play out before the system began running normally again. This would be highly unlikely to occur in a real environment because people would have real money at stake. But since this was fake Ethereum, those nodes were just neglected. But it was very interesting to see how the system responded exactly as it was designed to do. Now I think you can see why so few have jumped in to deposit their ETH. But what about staking pools like Rocket Pool? Those are supposed to make it easier to stake by lowering the amount of ETH needed to stake, as well as the technical knowledge requirements. Well, let's have a look at Rocket Pool. You can see they've got a great looking website. You can stake your Ether as little as 0.1 ETH and instantly receive RETH, a tokenized staking deposit. Interesting. Or you can stake and run, staking 16 ETH on your own node in the network and earn a higher return. Let's have a look at that. Here you can run your own node and stake your own ETH in the Rocket Pool network free from any commissions the network charges. Plus, gain extra rewards from the network, generating a higher ROI than you would staking solo. Only a minimum of 16 ETH is required to become a validator in the Rocket Pool network. That's half the amount required if you want to solo stake. You can even stake multiple amounts of 16 ETH on your own node easily if you wish. Well, this is great. Well, let's get started. Rocket Pool can't wait to get started, but we are currently under heavy development in anticipation of Ethereum's Serenity update, which will introduce staking and enable our network. While we eagerly await this milestone, we highly recommend you follow what we're up to. You can follow us on Twitter, Discord, or read our white paper. That's a great source of information. Let's have a look at that. I'm not going to read this entire document out to you. You should definitely do that if you're interested in using this service. There are a few points I definitely want to bring your attention to. One thing is you need to understand the difference between what they call stakers and node operators. Stakers are the individuals or users from API integrated businesses. They deposit ETH, which is automatically assigned to node operators for staking. They instantly receive RETH when depositing, which represents their deposit and its staking rewards generated by the network over time. Node operators maintain server infrastructure in this Rocket Pool network by running our smart node software stack that includes an ETH1 client, an ETH2 client, and a Rocket Pool client to coordinate the activity in the network. To be assigned deposits, a node operator must stake their own ETH in multiples of 16, which economically bonds them to behave and provide a good service, while still allowing them to earn rewards on their own ETH. Each of these 16 ETH deposits creates a validator which is matched with 16 ETH from stakers. For providing the service, node operators receive a commission that is sourced from deposits coming into the network. So they earn additional income and interest on their own ETH at the same time, which in turn allows them to generate a higher ROI than they would solo staking. So what they're basically saying here is stakers are the small depositors, anyone depositing less than 16 ETH. They don't run the node. They don't really do anything. They're just signing up with the contract. They're providing their Ethereum for someone else to manage. The node operators are any other individual who chooses to stake a higher balance, 16 ETH each, and they are assigned the node. But it's run on Rocket Pool's software, making it less complicated and easier to set up and manage. But there is a catch. What you're paid in is not actual Ethereum. It's their token, RETH. When a user deposits into the Rocket Pool network, they will instantly receive the RETH token, which represents their deposit and the rewards it gains over time in the Rocket Pool network. This token does not need to be locked within the network, and it can be traded, sold, or held as the user desires. When smart contracts are natively enabled on ETH2, a smart contract will be deployed that will allow users with the RETH token to burn it for ETH. This is expected to occur during phase 2 on the ETH2 rollout map. So what they're saying is that you're not going to be paid an actual Ethereum. You'll be receiving one of their tokens, which can be traded on the open market, which who knows what that'll be valued at for the time being. For phase 0 and 1 of the ETH rollout, if you run a node in Rocket Pool and withdraw from the network, you will receive the NETH token, which is a one-to-one token representing your deposit, rewards, and commissions earned in the network for the time you participated. This is not the same as RETH, which represents tokenized staking deposits and rewards earned by the whole network and is not one-to-one. When smart contracts are natively enabled on ETH2, a smart contract will be deployed, which will allow users with the NETH token to burn it for ETH. This is expected to occur during phase 2 on the ETH2 rollout map. So in both scenarios, you're going to be receiving a token, not actual Ethereum, until the rollout of the full 64 shards on the new Ethereum proof of stake blockchain, which is going to take at least 2 years, probably more. Until that time, you could consider that you at least have something that you can choose to trade with if you so desire. But in order to get your actual real Ethereum back, you will need to have that and then claim it through their smart contract system and hope and pray to God that that real Ethereum is actually there for you when you want it. And this is always the balance we seem to be striking with decentralized systems. We have the old technology where we're used to dealing with trusted third parties. They tend to make things easier for us, but it introduces additional risk. You're trusting that the Ethereum that these tokens are supposed to be backed by is actually held. Whereas if you're running your own node, none of that matters. It's your Ethereum, it's in your wallet with your keys. They may claim that you have the keys, but it's the keys for their token, not for the Ethereum which you originally provided. That belongs to them. They're just saying, we're going to hold this on to you. You keep your keys for this new token we're going to give you. And then when the contracts are ready, we'll have this here. You give us those back. We'll return this to you in a one-to-one ratio. However, that's only for the NETH holders, not the RETH holders. They didn't actually say what the ratio is for those stakers with the smaller deposits. Now, so don't get me wrong, I'm not really saying that the staking pools are going to be a bad idea, but they do carry some additional risks you need to be aware of. So do your research. And Rocket Pool is not the only staking pool out there. There are others, and each one has a different approach. So do your research if you're going to go down that route and understand what your risks are. But either way, it's going to take time for these staking pools to become active. And no doubt they're going to see massive adoption. But my prediction is that we are also going to see multiple failures and lots of people losing their ETH to failed projects and scams, no different than the ICO bubble in 2017 and 2018. I also predict that there is going to be a spike in transaction fees as all these low deposit stakers try to enter the system while we're still running on proof of work. This is why I'm still mining Ethereum as we speak and will continue to do so as long as I possibly can. I did not buy my first 32 Ethereum. I mined them. And I hope to mine another 32 Ethereum before the party ends. No matter what happens, we can officially say that staking is here. And I am honored to be among the elite few who will be the proud owners of what I am calling Genesis validators. Mine will be one of the oldest validators on the blockchain, and I will wear that like a badge of honor, and I plan to keep it up and running as long as I am physically able to do so. I will be able to tell my grandchildren that I was there when it all began. Imagine what Ethereum could be worth 30 or 40 years into the future, and I will still be running that validator. This is what empire building is all about. Lay the foundation and build on it. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see a tutorial on Windows or Linux first. I will try to get that out as quickly as the new testnet launches. If you forgot to do it, make sure you smash that like button and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one. Now let's get back to empire building. Bye.